And Christopher Lockyear is the Secretary General of Doctors Without Borders, joins us live from Geneva. Good to have you with us. So first of all, we know that the ICJ ruling has said that the Rafah Crossing should be opened, that humanitarian aid should be increased. Are you seeing any sign of the crossing being opened, of compliance with that ruling?
No, we're not. And we've been warning about the catastrophe that would be an offensive in Rafah for months now. But since the closure of the effective closure, or the total closure of the Rafah Crossing on the 7th of May, we are seeing a further strangulation of the Gaza Strip. We're seeing a further collective punishment to the people of Gaza. It is becoming critical in terms of fuel supplies. We've had to reorganize our hospitals since the offensive started in Rafah, including closing and moving patients from hospitals in the Indonesian Rafah Field Hospital, the Emirati Hospital, and trying to relocate to the Nasser Hospital in Rafah. But it's becoming increasingly complicated there as we're finding supply of water critical. We ourselves are unable to distribute as much water as we have been able to. Last week we were distributing around 400,000 litres of water, and this week we're down to 50,000 litres of water, so 1/8 of what we've been able to do because of the fuel shortages.
And today the reports are talking about aid trucks coming through Karam Abu Salim. From what we've seen so far, does it look like all the aid that is needed is coming through Karam Abu Salim?
Well, what I would say in terms of aid coming into Gaza, that's the first step in the equation. That's the first part of the equation. It's also a question of being able to move aid around in Gaza, and it's also being able to, if you are running hospitals like we are or like we're trying to, it's a question of being able to have electricity, fuel, water supply. It's being able to have staff that are healthy, are safe, are mentally fit and physically fit to being able to treat patients. And that's becoming an ever-increasing, ever-complex problem when we come looking into this horrific conflict which has been going on for months in Gaza now.
Listening then to what you're saying, would it be enough simply for Israel to end the offensive in Rafah if the conflict continues elsewhere in Gaza? Would that create the conditions you're talking about that allow you to meet the needs of the population? Or do you feel that there needs to be a complete cessation of all offensive actions in Gaza?
Well, as an absolute minimum, we need an immediate and sustained ceasefire, and we've been needing that for months. But I would go further than that and look back at what the ICJ said back on the 26th of January, and in particular, as well as the protection of civilians to make sure that the population of Gaza are not indiscriminately attacked. They also ruled at that time in terms of the immediate scale of humanitarian assistance. And that's, yes, moving supplies into an all-round Gaza. So I would argue that all crossings into Gaza need to be open, but then moving supplies around Gaza and being able to have a situation where you can have humanitarian aid workers safely treat people all around the Gaza Strip. And we're now well over 200 humanitarian workers who've been tragically killed since the start of this horrific conflict.
In comments posted on the 21st of May, a former Israeli Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, said Israel has allowed 400,000 tons of food and aid into Gaza, an increase, he says, an increase of 30% since before the war. Now, I've been listening to what you said today. I've been reading the statements by your organization 3 days later, on May the 24th, that says, quote, essential humanitarian and medical aid has barely entered since the beginning of May. Do you see any evidence of an increase of 30% of humanitarian aid and food entering Gaza since October the 7th?
No, and let's take a step back here. And what we're seeing here is a battle of communication as well. Let's be really clear. Since before October 7th, the number of trucks, the amount of supply coming into Gaza has reduced. Since May the 7th, when the Rafah Crossing has been closed, we've seen an even further reduction of supply coming into Gaza. But I would reiterate Even though we're seeing strangulation upon strangulation, I would reiterate that it is more than just simply bringing trucks into the Gaza Strip. Humanitarian assistance is a really complex ecosystem of activities that we need to legitimize throughout that whole chain. It is not just about crossing the border. It is about moving supplies around the border. It is about having humanitarian workers who are safe, able to treat people, able to distribute food safely, and to be able to themselves have somewhere to live. And we've just seen over the last few days since the Rafah offensive, 900,000 people, according to the UN, again displacing after having made the horrific choice to have to displace towards Rafah or the Al-Mawasi area, having to displace yet again. So this is much more than a false narrative about increasing supplies coming into the Gaza Strip.
Thank you very much for giving us your perspective on that.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.